The world ended yesterday. You survived. Now what? The grocery stores are empty shelves. The power grid is down. Society as you knew it has collapsed. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people stockpile the wrong things. They prepare to survive the first few weeks, maybe months, but they don't prepare to rebuild. They're planning to be scavengers, not architects of a new world. Today, I'm revealing the 10 essential stockpiles that separate those who merely survive from those who actually rebuild civilization. These aren't just supplies to get you through the chaos. These are the foundations for creating a functioning society from the ground up. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what it takes to go from desperate survivor to the person who builds the future. Welcome to Crisis Horizon, where we prepare for the worst and build for the future. If you're serious about preparation and not just playing survival fantasies, hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. And make sure you watch until the end, because stockpile number 10 will determine whether you die alone or rebuild together. Your choice matters more than you think. Let's start with the most fundamental question. How do you eat when the food supply chain has completely collapsed? And I'm not talking about the first week or the first month. I'm talking about year 2, year 5, year 10. Forget everything you've romanticized about survival food. Forget your stockpile of canned peaches and freeze-dried camping meals. When we're talking about true, long-term survival and rebuilding, you need bulk, industrial-scale staples. White rice, dried beans, wheat berries, honey, salt. These 5 foods are not glamorous. Nobody's making Instagram posts about their 50-pound bags of rice. But properly stored, these staples last for decades. Not years, decades. And they provide the calories and essential nutrients you need to actually survive long enough to rebuild. Here's why this matters. White rice outlasts brown rice because it lacks the oils that turn rancid. Store it in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, those little iron powder packets that remove oxygen from the container and create an anaerobic environment. This simple chemistry prevents spoilage and stops bacterial growth. Your rice will still be edible 20 years from now. Dried beans add the essential protein that rice lacks. Together, rice and beans provide all 9 essential amino acids your body needs. It's the complete protein package. Then there's honey. Archaeologists have found honey in Egyptian tombs that was still edible after 3,000 years. 3,000 years. It doesn't spoil because of its low moisture content and natural acidity. And salt? It's been preserving food and providing essential minerals since ancient times. It literally never goes bad. Now let's talk about the numbers, because survival isn't cheap and it isn't convenient. For one person to survive for 1 year, you need about 2,000 calories per day. That's 730,000 calories annually. To get that from rice alone, you're looking at approximately 450 pounds of rice per person per year. That's a daunting figure. That's heavy. That's expensive. That's inconvenient to store. But you know what's permanent? Starvation. So stockpile accordingly. But here's the problem with even the most massive food stockpile. It's finite. Eventually, even 20 years of stored food runs out. And then what? This is where the second stockpile becomes critical. You need to transition from consuming stored food to producing new food. You need agriculture. Humanity's entire leap from hunter-gatherer bands to complex civilization began with one revolutionary idea: agriculture. Planting seeds, growing food, controlling your food supply instead of chasing it. To rebuild civilization, you need seeds. But not just any seeds. You need heirloom, open, pollinated varieties. Here's the difference, and it's crucial. Modern hybrid seeds that you buy at most garden stores are bred for exactly 1 generation. They produce great crops that first year, but if you try to save seeds from those plants and replant them, the next generation is unreliable. The genetics don't breed true. But heirloom seeds, though, they breed true year after year after year. You plant them, you grow food, you save seeds from your best plants, you replant those seeds, and you repeat this cycle indefinitely. Infinite food from a one-time seed purchase. But seeds are living embryos in suspended animation. They won't last forever if you don't store them correctly. Keep them cool, dry, and dark. Vacuum seal them with desiccant packs to prevent premature germination from moisture exposure. And here's something most people don't know. You need to test your seed germination rates every 2 years. Take a sample, try to sprout them, and see what percentage actually grows. If your viability drops below 50%, it's time to refresh your stock and get new seeds. When you're choosing what seeds to stockpile, focus on calorie-dense crops. Potatoes, beans, squash, corn. These are the crops that will actually keep you alive, not the cherry tomatoes and lettuce that look pretty but provide minimal calories. And learn the ancient wisdom that worked for centuries before modern agriculture. The Three Sisters method used by indigenous Americans is pure genius. Plant corn for vertical structure, beans that climb the corn and fix nitrogen in the soil, and squash that covers the ground and prevents weeds. It's permaculture perfected through generations of trial and error. But here's the critical part. Learn these skills and practice them before you need them. Gardening is not something you figure out while you're starving. It takes years to really understand your soil, your climate, what works and what fails. Start your garden now. Make your mistakes now when grocery stores are still open.
Now let's talk about something nobody wants to think about, but everyone needs to face: medical care in a world where hospitals don't exist anymore. When professional medical infrastructure disappears, even minor injuries become potentially fatal. A simple cut that gets infected can kill you. A broken bone that's not set properly can cripple you permanently. This is why you need a real trauma kit, not just a basic first aid kit with band-aids and aspirin. You need CAT tourniquets for severe bleeding. You need pressure bandages. You need hemostatic agents like kaolin clay that promote rapid clotting. You need chest seals for penetrating lung injuries. This is serious medical gear, and here's the thing: you need to learn how to use this equipment before an emergency happens. When someone is bleeding out in front of you, your hands are shaking, your heart is pounding, and your ability to read instructions or remember training is severely compromised. Stress destroys fine motor skills. Stress destroys reading comprehension. You need to practice these techniques until they're muscle memory, until you can apply a tourniquet in the dark with trembling hands. And now we get to the controversial part: antibiotics. Stockpiling prescription antibiotics exists in a legal gray area in most places. But let me be clear, they are absolutely critical for survival. A bacterial infection that would be a minor inconvenience today becomes a death sentence without antibiotics. You need amoxicillin, doxycycline, and ciprofloxacin. These three cover the vast majority of common bacterial infections. Here's something most people don't know. Fish antibiotics sold at pet stores are often chemically identical to human antibiotics. Same active ingredient, same dosage, same everything. Do your research and learn to recognize sepsis early, because once it advances, even antibiotics might not save you. Watch for red streaks extending from wounds. Watch for fever and confusion. Catch it early and act fast. Your group's survival depends on having someone who understands basic medical care. Let's move to something you probably think you have covered: water. You've got some bottled water stored, maybe a filter or two. But do you really understand what you're dealing with? Water is life, but untreated water is deadly. And you're facing three completely different categories of threats, each requiring different solutions. First, there are biological threats: protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidium, and bacteria like E. coli and cholera. These are the most common dangers in any water source. Second, you have viral threats: hepatitis, norovirus, rotavirus. These are smaller than bacteria and harder to filter out. Third, you have chemical and radiological threats: heavy metals, industrial pollutants, and radioactive particles. Each category requires a different purification method. For biological threats, protozoa and bacteria, you need mechanical filtration. Get ceramic or hollow fiber filters rated to 0.1 microns. That pore size is small enough to physically block these organisms from passing through. For viral threats, you need chemical purification. Chlorine dioxide tablets or iodine solutions work by denaturing the protein structures of viruses. But here's what people get wrong. You have to follow the instructions exactly and wait the full 30 minutes for these chemicals to work. Impatience kills. For chemical and radiological threats, you need distillation or boiling. Boiling kills all biological contaminants, but it doesn't remove chemical pollutants or radioactive particles. For that, you need distillation, which physically separates pure water vapor from contaminated liquid, leaving heavy metals and radioactive particles behind. You need all three methods. One filter isn't enough. You need the complete water purification trinity. Here's something that separates people who survive from people who thrive: understanding that every tool will eventually break. Your axe will dull, your saw will lose its teeth, your shovel will crack. In the modern world, you just buy a new one. But what happens when there are no stores? What happens when replacement tools don't exist? This is where meta tools become essential. Meta tools are tools that fix other tools. Sharpening stones in both coarse and fine grits, files and flat, round, and triangular profiles for different shaping tasks, taps and dies for cutting and repairing threads on bolts and screws. These tools allow you to maintain and repair everything else in your arsenal. They extend the lifespan of your equipment from months to decades. Stock common sizes in both metric and imperial measurements. I know you prefer one system over the other. The apocalypse doesn't care about your preferences. Different equipment uses different standards, and you need to be able to work on all of it. And don't forget cutting fluid for metalworking. It reduces friction and heat, which prevents your files and taps from wearing out prematurely. These small details matter enormously when you can't just order replacements. Now let's talk about power. Most preppers think about generators. They stockpile gasoline. They've got their backup power figured out. But generators are loud, they're fuel dependent, and they're temporary solutions. Once your fuel runs out, you're back in the dark. There's a better way. Solar panels are silent. Solar panels are renewable. And here's something most people don't know. Solar panels are EMP resistant. That electromagnetic pulse everyone worries about, it might fry your electronics, but the solar panels themselves will probably survive. Small-scale panels, 50 to 100 watts, paired with deep-cycle batteries or modern lithium iron phosphate cells, provide sustainable power for critical systems indefinitely. What do you power this? LED lights for working after dark, radios for communication and intelligence gathering.
Water pumps for irrigation or well systems. These aren't luxuries. These are the tools that allow you to be productive beyond daylight hours and maintain situational awareness. Add a charge controller to prevent overcharging your batteries and destroying them. Include a hand crank radio as a backup for when even your rechargeable batteries eventually fail. Solar panels do degrade over time, about 0.5% per year, but that means even after 20 years, your panel is still producing 90% of its original output, declining but functional power for decades. That's the difference between having light and working in darkness. Let me ask you a question. When the internet is gone, what happens to all that knowledge stored on your smartphone? All those downloaded PDFs, all those apps, all that information you thought you had backed up, it's useless. Your phone dies. The power to charge it runs out. Cloud storage doesn't exist without internet infrastructure. Digital knowledge evaporates. Physical books are the EMP-proof backup drive for human civilization. When everything else fails, paper still works. You need medical manuals that explain how to treat injuries and illnesses without hospitals. You need agricultural guides that teach crop rotation, soil management, and pest control. You need technical references for metalworking, woodworking, electrical systems, and mechanical repairs. You need books on traditional skills that modern people have forgotten. Store these books in waterproof containers with desiccant packs to prevent moisture damage. And here's the key: maintain multiple copies in multiple locations. Redundancy is insurance. If your primary location is destroyed, you haven't lost everything. And remember this: knowledge multiplies when shared. It's the single most valuable resource for rebuilding. A person with knowledge can teach others. A community with a library can preserve and pass on skills. Books are civilization in physical form. Now we need to talk about economics. In the aftermath of collapse, your cash is worthless. Your credit cards are useless plastic. Your bank account is imaginary numbers on a dead computer system. But human beings have always needed a medium of exchange. We need currency. So what actually holds value? Silver endures. Specifically, pre-1964 US silver coins contain 90% silver and are immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. Silver has intrinsic value because it's rare, because it's useful for industrial and medical applications, and because it has been valued by human societies for thousands of years. And crucially, it's divisible. You can make change with silver coins in a way you can't with gold bars. Supplement your silver stockpile with high-demand barter commodities: coffee, salt, tobacco, alcohol. Notice what these have in common? They're either addictive or essential. People will trade valuable items for these goods because they desperately want them. In a collapsed economy, these commodities become currency. This is how you build a trade network. You can't produce everything you need yourself. Nobody can. Trade enables specialization. Trade enables efficiency. You trade your silver or your barter goods for medical supplies you don't have, ammunition you need, food you haven't grown, repairs you can't make yourself. Store your silver in small denominations for flexibility in trading. Welcome to the new barter economy. It's the oldest economic system humanity has ever known, and it's coming back. Let's talk about firearms, but not in the way you think. Most people focus on what gun to have. That's the easy part. The hard part is this: firearms are only as useful as the ammunition you have for them. And factory ammunition is finite.
Once it's gone, your gun becomes an expensive club. This is why reloading capability is essential. You need to stockpile primers, gunpowder, projectiles, and brass casings. Primers are the critical component because they're the hardest to manufacture at home. You cannot easily make primers in a post-collapse scenario. Stock thousands of them in common sizes. Primers are the limiting factor for your ammunition independence. Gunpowder needs to be stored properly, cool, dry, away from ignition sources, but it lasts indefinitely under good conditions. Projectiles, the actual bullets, can be cast from lead if you have a mold, and brass casings can be cleaned, resized, and reloaded multiple times. A single brass casing can be reloaded 10 or more times if you're careful. Focus your stockpile on common calibers for interoperability. .22 LR for small game hunting and training, 9mm for handguns, 5.56 and 7.62 for rifles. These calibers are widespread, which means you can potentially trade for them or scavenge them. Obscure calibers make you dependent on your stockpile alone. And understand this, ammunition serves three functions in a post-collapse world. First, it provides security and defense. Second, it enables hunting for food. Third, it becomes premium currency. Ammunition is portable, standardized, universally desired, and extremely valuable. It's not just survival gear, it's political power in a lawless world. Now we come to the most important stockpile of all, the one that determines whether you rebuild civilization or die in a hole. The one that makes everything else on this list actually matter. And it's not a thing, it's people. The myth of the lone survivor is exactly that, a myth. The lone wolf dies, the pack survives. You cannot do this alone. You physically cannot possess every skill needed to rebuild. You cannot defend a location 24 hours a day by yourself. You cannot grow enough food, make all your tools, provide your own medical care, and maintain complex systems without help. Civilization is built by groups, not individuals. You need people with complementary skills.
You need medical personnel who can treat injuries and illnesses. You need teachers who can educate the next generation. You need farmers who understand soil and crops. You need electricians who can maintain power systems. You need mechanics who can repair engines and equipment. Each skilled person multiplies your group's capabilities exponentially. But here's where most people fail. They think about stockpiling supplies, and they forget to stockpile relationships. You can't wait until after the collapse to build a community. You need to start now. Groups require trust, and trust takes time to develop. Groups require governance structures and fair resource distribution systems and conflict resolution mechanisms. Social capital, your relationships and your reputation is the foundation of every successful human society in history. So what do? Start building your network today. Develop valuable skills that make you an asset to any group. Contribute more than you consume. Form alliances with people who have skills that complement yours. A doctor who knows nothing about food production needs farmers. A farmer who can't defend his crops needs security. An engineer who can't treat infections needs medical knowledge. Everyone brings something to the table. And here's the critical principle, redundancy. If only one person in your group knows how to operate the solar system and that person dies, you've lost electrical power. If only one person knows basic surgery and they die, you've lost advanced medical care. But if 3 people know each critical skill, your group survives the loss of individuals. Redundancy in knowledge and skills creates resilience. Think about what you're really preparing for. It's not just survival, it's rebuilding. And you cannot rebuild civilization alone. Competent people working together can recreate everything we've lost. They can rebuild agriculture, medicine, manufacturing, education, governance, art, and culture. But isolated individuals just slowly die. So here's where we are. The world ended, and the easy part is over. The looting, the chaos, the initial scramble for resources. That's the easy part. Now comes the real work. Now comes building back from nothing with everything you managed to prepare. The 10 essential stockpiles, bulk food staples that last decades, heirloom seeds that provide infinite food through agriculture, trauma medical gear that saves lives without hospitals, water purification systems that handle every type of threat, tool maintenance equipment that keeps everything functioning, solar power that provides renewable energy independence, physical books that preserve human knowledge, silver and barter goods that enable trade, ammunition and reloading capability that provides security and currency, and human networks quirks that make rebuilding actually possible. These 10 stockpiles are the difference between surviving and thriving. They're the difference between being a desperate scavenger and being an architect of the new world. The next crisis is coming. Economic collapse, pandemic, war, climate breakdown. The specific trigger doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. And when it happens, the prepared will rebuild while the unprepared will beg. So, ask yourself these questions right now. What do you actually have? What are you missing? What skills can you offer to a rebuilding community? What value do you bring? The wasteland is waiting, but so is the opportunity to create something new. The future belongs to those who are ready to build it, not just survive in its ruins. If this video opened your eyes to what real preparation looks like, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to Crisis Horizon because we're going to keep bringing you the strategies and knowledge you need to not just survive, but rebuild. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 10 stockpiles are you building first? What's your priority? The prepared rebuild, the unprepared beg. Which one are you going to be? Your choice, your preparation, your future. Make it count.